I'm Jennifer Furlong, and I am a licensed professional counselor. So I have a private practice doing therapy now with mainly women and teenagers. And I have worked for over 25 years, like in the mental health world.
Right.
So I've seen many things, over my years. And divorce is one of those things which I think is even harder, well, maybe sometimes more difficult than going through a death, or very similar.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
because it's hard to see an end point, so it goes on sometimes for so long.
The grieving of it. Right?
Yes, the
Yeah.
grieving of it, and just during it, how to figure out, again, it can be such a long process and difficult and challenging. So people need to understand that this is a loss, like a death. It's a
Sure.
loss because
Sure.
you're losing the spouse that you had married for life, right? Nobody gets married and plans on getting divorced.
Yeah, and I think without getting overly dramatic about it, but I don't know if we can get overly dramatic about
No,
it. But there is the death of your dreams. There are the death of your hopes, the plans that you had. All of those things are coming to some extent to an end, and out of every death comes a rebirth. So there is a next chapter, and I think that's one of the things that this support group helps, especially when we have people in those different phases, the before, the during, and an after. I think it helps people understand that there is a life after divorce. Just understanding it, hearing it from other people, and then that helps them through that transition. Oh, my name is Hamid Nuragi. I'm a family law managing attorney at the Ashmore Law Firm. I've been a family law attorney for well over 25 years now. And in that time, I've worn all the hats. I've been a litigator in the courts. I've been a family law mediator where I keep people out of the courts. I've been a private judge where they want to keep the complete matter out of the courts and keep everything confidential and in the hands of experts. I've been a divorce coach, which was probably the most fulfilling, where I just helped people as a coach through the divorce process. And I've written books on the subject of divorce that was written for the average person. No Latin allowed. This was to simplify everything. And all of that knowledge, experience, and wisdom is what I try to bring to the support group and give people access to it in a safe environment. So with the knowledge and accurate information, as opposed to information that may come from well-intentioned friends or family members or Google, this information is more accurate that will allow people to make better choices.
Yes. So the purpose of the support group is being able to be there and offer some guidance, some emotional support, some legal support, I guess, on your side.
Right.
And to help people through this time in their lives that is just extremely challenging and difficult and emotional. And emotions are up and down, and there's so many things that are really difficult about divorce, and even trying to decide whether you're going to divorce or not, or it might have been thrown at you by your spouse. So you're it's a grief process, anger, sadness, emptiness, all these feelings. And so I think everybody who is considering divorce or going through a divorce really needs to have a therapist that they're talking to regularly. And then, so we're kind of providing that for people, as well as your legal expertise, which is also very helpful for people.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I wanted to try to contribute to as far as a support group, the divorce support group, is a safe place for people to be able to go and express themselves. There's all sorts of emotions that are going on during a divorce, and in the 25 plus years that I've been helping people through this in the different capacities, whether it was a lawyer, whether it was a divorce coach, whether it was a mediator, whether it was a private judge, the one consistency is people a lot of times felt overwhelmed. And I talked to a lot of people where they would have these flood of emotions and they would feel very isolated. Who do you turn to? You don't want to, some of them don't want to bother their friends. Well, this support group is that safe environment where you can go and have something in common with people, but also through your expertise as a therapist, my expertise as an attorney, it brings together those resources that a lot of people may need, but they don't realize they need until it's too late.
Right. Because a lot of times when the divorce is starting to happen,
Right.
women just, they do get so overwhelmed
Sure.
and it's such chaos in their lives and they're not expecting it. And right, life still goes on every day, even though the divorce is happening, right? You still maybe have kids to take care of. You still have maybe a job and house to take care of. And so they don't know what to do, where to go, how to handle things. And just emotions, again, are all over the place. So really having a therapist guide you through those emotions and help you kind of figure out what it is that you need to deal with. And some people just shut it down and shut it off because they have to go on with real life. And then they don't allow themselves to feel anything. And that is the worst thing that you can do because you need to feel it as you go, but you also need some help being guided through those feelings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm an organizational freak, okay, in my personal life and in the way I help people. I try to provide some structure and some organization. So, for example, during a divorce process or in a divorce, I break it down into 3 different phases. There's a before, there's a during, and there's a after the divorce process. Each one of those has different information that people need. It has a different focus that they need to be able to, laser in on. And there's different things that come later, so you don't want to allow yourself to be overwhelmed with it. Right. So that structure of a beginning, a middle, and an end of a divorce is something we talk about in this divorce process. And it doesn't come from a lecture. Right. The beauty of the forum is that you have people who are going through similar things, and sometimes the best answers come from those people who are going through it.
Yes.
The other element of organization is I always try to break it down for people into, most people don't realize they're going through 2 divorces at the same time. There's a legal divorce. There's what I call the real divorce. And the distinction being the legal divorce is just a bureaucratic process. It's the court process, the state mandated process that you have to go through to have your marital status terminated and deal with some legal issues about house, money, kids, etc. The real divorce is everything else. It's all of those emotions that have to be processed. They have to be felt. They have to be transitioned through. And that's where, again, the beauty of your participation and mine is I help people handle the legal part of it. You help them handle the emotional part of it.
Right. The topics of the divorce support group that we have kind of focused on, like initially people were sharing their stories.
Right.
And there was a lot of similarities with everybody's stories. Right. And they all seemed to connect really well. And then it wasn't just you and I providing support, it was the group members.
That's the beauty of it.
Yes, providing support for each other because, I had that happen to me, or I've been there too, or I've been married for 25 years and I've been married for 30 years. And, so these are all, when you're going through it, you think that you're going through it alone and that nobody else knows what you're talking about. And you feel like you're crazy, I hate to use the word crazy, but that's really, you just feel like you're losing it. And having other people there to talk to and to understand that everybody has their own challenges going through this.
And I love the friendships that have evolved out of this thing. We have so many people who have come into the support group feeling very overwhelmed, very isolated. They didn't want to, at least they felt like they didn't want to burden their existing friends who weren't really going through the same thing. They didn't want to talk about it. The other thing is a lot of their friends were mutual friends with the spouse. Right. So through this support group, so many new friendships have evolved because now there's that commonality. Yes. Now there's that the connection between the two of them that they can relate to.
Right.
I also have been very impressed with the feedback we've received from the people who participated in it,
Yes.
thanking us for putting this together, thanking thanking God for somehow falling into some kind of algorithm and the
Yes.
Google that found this, because they really found it relieving.
Yes. I mean, anybody who I've talked to about it is just amazed, and just that it's unbelievable that an attorney and a therapist would like partner together to do something like this.
Yeah.
You know, it's not really a known thing. You know,
Right.
people don't do that. So this is really a special group because they have, I mean, the participants all have access to the knowledge that we both have together. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So our group meets. We were trying to do every week, but there's been a couple weeks we've missed because people weren't available or
Right.
we weren't available. So it's been kind of mainly on Fridays in the morning time. So typically Friday, like from 10 to 12 or something. And
Right.
time, you know, if somebody needs to leave early or get off or you know, do something else, that's fine. You know, it doesn't interrupt us for somebody to come in or out. And we've been doing virtual the past couple of times because there's people who live far away, you know, and, you know, an hour and a half drive or something.
Well, the
to get to
convenience of
us.
it.
Yes.
The convenience of it.
And-
I mean,
yeah.
Dallas is getting crowded, so getting around is not as easy as before. And this is tried to, the purpose of this is to make things easier for people, not to make it more difficult. So yeah, we've tried to make it at least weekly. We've tried to provide that option of whether in office, because the first meeting we had was in person. A lot of people actually enjoyed that,
Yes.
of sitting across the table from us and sitting across the table from other people. But other times they've enjoyed the convenience of virtual. They didn't have to leave work. They didn't have to leave, their other obligations.
Right.
So yeah, we try to be flexible on that. And you and I are volunteering our time. We're not. We're not getting paid for this.
Right.
This is something we do because it allows us another opportunity to use our knowledge, our experience. Can I say wisdom?
Ye-
Do we have
yes,
wisdom after
I-
all this years of
I
doing
mean, I
this?
hope so,
Wisdom
yeah.
that we've acquired and
Yes.
give people the benefit of it. So we want to try to make it as frequent as possible, but it's also not an obligation on people's part. You don't have to
Right.
show up. If you feel comfortable, you do. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't.
Right. And I think even if sometimes we start with a topic and it veers off
Yeah.
to whatever, you know, the group is kind of needing at the time. So we can have good intentions to talk about this, but it goes.
Honestly, that's my favorite.
I love
Because
that.
we always try to have some kind of topic to discuss, but my favorite is when it goes off track because something has been bothering somebody.
Yes.
And in this safe environment, they have the opportunity to express it. And how many times has someone expressed it? They've almost been apologetic for expressing it.
Yes.
But then almost everybody else in the room acknowledges that I felt the same thing.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And it's important for them to hear that they're not the only person who's ever had these
Sure.
thoughts. You know?
absolutely.
That most people who are going through a divorce situation or even considering divorce or living in a difficult marriage where you're thinking about divorce for years before anything finally happens.
Yeah, divorce is an equal opportunity torment. It torments everybody.
Yes.
And one thing that, it always comes up when I give certain pieces of wisdom that I've talked about
Yes.
before, or advice, or it comes from all these years and all these people that I've helped. And sometimes people will turn around and say, yeah, Hamid, but it's not that easy. Let me establish this here, and I'll repeat it all over the time. Divorce is not easy. Nothing about this easy. But some of the exercises that we present to people, some of the advice that we give, it has worked in the past. And it, like everything else, it has to be repeated for it to have long-term effects. So, yeah, divorce is not easy, but it can be easier.
Right.
Divorce is not good, but it can be better.
Yes. If they kind of take the pressure off of themselves, because if you stuff all your feelings as they're coming and stuff them, they're going to just explode at some point. And you're not going to be able to really think logically or come up with a good game plan, or have a successful meeting with your attorney, because you've got emotions that are going to be exploding all over the place, you know.
Well, that goes to the distinction that we talk a lot about in the support group, is that distinction between the legal divorce and the real divorce.
Yes.
Of how do you satisfy both, but don't allow them to cross over, because the emotions can mess up the legal divorce can mess up the emotions.
Right.
But both of them are equally as important.
Yes. So hard to do, though. Like, from a therapist's
Not
perspective, so hard to do. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, to just leave your emotions, it's kind of like putting your emotions aside while you have this meeting with your attorney. But, you know, it usually is triggering, you know, to a lot
Sure.
of people. And so there might be, so I think it's important, too, to find an attorney who can manage a little bit of that, like
A lot of that.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
actually, a lot of that. And finding an attorney who understands that distinction, first of all,
Yes.
is really important.
Right.
Having a support group such as ours, or any support group that allows you to satisfy the needs of the real divorce, the emotional divorce.
Right.
Where it becomes difficult, first of all, is not knowing about that distinction.
Oh, yeah.
Knowledge is power.
It is.
Now, knowing that distinction is really key, or can be detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
Two is, if you have a outlet for the emotional part,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes easier. Again, nothing's easy. Easier to deal with the legal without the emotions, and then having an attorney who points out
Mm-hmm.
that this is an issue that requires your objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try not to, not judging, but let's try not to have emotions come over here.
Mm-hmm.
And then having someone such as yourself, a therapist, to help them deal with the emotions properly and keep the legal issues out of it. And we talk about examples of that in the support group.
Yes. And like, as a therapist, kind of working with one of these women, you know, individually,
Yeah.
you really want to help them, you know, separate, like
Yeah.
you said, you know, and not just be a mess kind of all the time. I mean, there's going to be messy times, and we're going to cry, and it's going to be awful.
Sure.
But if you can do that a little bit before the meeting, you know, you kind of get some of it out, and then you can have a more productive meeting with the attorney.
Yeah. So I really want to encourage everybody who's listening to this to
Yes.
reach out for help. You don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
You've been amazing in terms of corresponding with people. So if they have questions about the support group, can they reach out to you?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And find out more information. And anytime they feel comfortable, just join into one of our sessions.
Yes. Yeah.
And we hope to see you there.
Yeah. And hopefully we might be able to figure out a way to do some in person and some virtual at the same time.
Sure.
That is
It's all
my
based
goal.
on the feedback we get.
It's based
all
on the feedback, yes.
So this is designed for them, not for us.
Yes, that's right. So we want everybody to be able to be, you know, to come and to experience it and decide if
Yeah.
they want to continue coming back, because it's helpful for everybody that we've seen so far. So
Well, thanks for participating in this with me on the bigger
Yes.
project and talking about it today.
yes, thank you too.
So for more information about the support group, how to get in touch with us, how to participate, click the link below, and that will take you to where you need to be.